Welcome to From Betrayal to Breakthrough. I'm Dr. Debbie Silber, and today's guest is Carol Lourie. Carol is a naturopath, an acupuncturist, a homeopath with over 40 years of experience specializing in integrative breast cancer care. Through her Empowered Against Recurrence program, she's helped thousands of women reclaim their health post-treatment with actionable strategies for recovery, resilience, and long-term wellness. So welcome to today's episode. I'm so excited to bring on my longtime friend and expert in integrative healing, Carol Lourie. We're diving into a topic we don't often talk about, but this is so important: breast cancer and its connection to emotional stress and betrayal. If you've ever wondered how trauma and upsetting experiences can contribute to chronic disease, or if you or someone you love has been affected by breast cancer, this is an episode you don't want to miss. Carol is sharing powerful insights on how to take control of your health, advocate for yourself, and integrate holistic healing strategies alongside medical treatments. Let's dive in. Okay, everybody, you are in for such a special treat today. We have my friend Carol Lourie here. We've been friends for such a long time. I've admired her work for years, and I'm bringing her on because today we're talking about breast cancer, and we're going to be talking about the potential link between emotional stress and breast cancer. We're going to be talking about how we can feel betrayed by breast cancer and so much more. So welcome, Carol.
Thank you so much for having me. It's just great to be here.
Yeah. This was one of those things where when I thought about bringing you on the show, I'm like, it's a topic we don't normally talk about, but it's something so, unfortunately, so common when it comes to stress and all things that we go through as it relates to betrayal. So let's first talk about the emotional component. How in the world does something emotional like betrayal can potentially lead us to these physical things like breast cancer? Let's start there.
When I initially intake a woman into my online program or my concierge program, one of the first questions I ask her is, have you ever had any trauma? And a lot of women say to me, well, no, I haven't had any trauma. So I go, well, if I change the word trauma for upsetting experiences, have you had any of those? And they go, oh yeah, lots. And then they proceed to tell me about this event and that event, which were really traumatic. So there is always a connection between upsetting experiences, betrayal being one of them, trauma, betrayal being one in there too, and the creation of a chronic metabolic disease, which is what breast cancer is. What are the other chronic metabolic diseases? Colitis, migraine headaches, Crohn's disease, any form of cancer, diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic arthritis, any inflammatory chronic disease has a foundational contributing factor of betrayal in emotionally upsetting experiences or trauma as a contributing factor.
It is so interesting you said that, because we have our post-betrayal syndrome quiz to see to what extent people are struggling. And we've had over 100,000 people take it. And 45% of everyone betrayed has a digestive issue. Crohn's, IBS, diverticulitis, constipation, diarrhea, you name it. So it's amazing how that is so common. And I'm sure a lot of the people listening, watching are shaking their head like, oh my gosh, yes, I've had those experiences. What's so interesting to me, though, is they've experienced betrayal and they don't consider that a trauma when you ask them.
Well, I want to just reply with this phrase, I couldn't stomach it. That's where the digestive problems come in. And there are phrases that reflect trauma. And as far as women who've had a betrayal, not thinking that's a trauma, let me share with you this true story, and thank goodness we don't do this anymore. But when I was in junior high many, many years ago in science class, we did this experiment where we put a frog in warm water and we gradually increased the temperature till it boiled to death. Now, we don't do that anymore because it's animal torture. This was many, many years ago, and I apologize to everybody for even bringing this up, but this is a very common syndrome for women in our society and women with cancer. It's like you adjust, you adapt, and there's more and more stuff that's being put on your shoulders to the point where your body goes, knock, knock, knock. I can't handle this anymore. And then you have digestive problems, and then you have anxiety and depression, and then you have insomnia, and then you get a diagnosis of breast cancer. So your psyche and your body will continue to turn the volume up until you start paying attention to the knock, 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 because we're all very busy in our lives and we are super women in some levels. And we think, oh, I'll get over it, or it's not that big of a deal. But we're also more vulnerable and fragile than we realize, and and then our society doesn't really support our vulnerability and our fragility, right?
And it's so crazy how we need that sort of knock over the head to just have us stop and pay attention. And I always thought it was just a story. I didn't realize it was a real thing that you did
Oh,
in,
yeah.
in school
No,
with the
it's
frogs.
real. We don't
Wow.
do that anymore, but it's biological science. Yes, it is
Yeah.
real.
So tell us, because you see so many people with breast cancer, tell us how people feel like their bodies have betrayed them. Like, what do they tell you? What do they share?
This isn't the most common statement women make. I ate properly. I thought I did. I exercised. I take care of myself. I managed my stress, and I still got breast cancer. I feel betrayed by my body. What the heck happened? That's almost a direct quote from many, many women.
Right, right.
Um, there is no one contributing cause of breast cancer.
Mhm.
And there, yes, if you have a BRCA1 or 2 mutation, there is a up to 15% more likelihood that you will develop cancer. But there is a lot you can do to, number one, be aware of what your contributing factors are and reduce certain aspects that will make it potentially happen. And one of the most important things, I think, is doing regular breast exams,
Mhm.
because nobody understands how your breasts feel better than you. And when you, if and when you notice something, well, this feels a little strange, and you go to the doctor, your gynecologist, your primary care doctor, and they go, well, it's nothing, it's a cyst. Don't take that as a no. You have the right to say, I really want a mammogram and an ultrasound. Um, an ounce of prevention is worth, and there are people who are saying, well, you're getting exposed to radiation. I mean, yes, you are exposed to a little bit of radiation with a mammogram.
Mhm.
There are things that you can do to protect yourself. For example, you can drink miso soup before and after your mammogram. You can take certain forms of vitamin E before and after your mammogram for a couple of weeks or a month or so. And there's melatonin that also helps with that preventively. But I am a firm believer, because when I intake people, I always say, "Did you discover this by yourself or on a routine mammogram?" And as you just said with your statistic, 85% of the women I talk to, they discover their breast cancer lump on a routine mammogram.
Yeah, wow. And I'll tell you, my mom passed from breast cancer
Oh,
years
I'm
ago,
sorry.
29 years ago. And I remember how, well, she had breast cancer the first time. And then
That was barbaric what they did to women when she had it.
absolutely. And
Barbaric.
then she had another lump on the mastectomy and had another lump. And then they really minimized, they really minimized it. And then that turned into breast to bone to liver. So it's, you're right. Take that seriously.
Don't let the doctors say it's nothing. It's okay to be labeled a quote, a difficult patient. I actually, first of all, don't even like that word patient. You're somebody who's extremely assertive and you're not going to take no for an answer. And you can always say, it's medically covered and I'm really going to insist.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Okay. I hope everybody is really hearing this because we're talking about your health right here. So tell us some of the so now someone is sort of in this pickle, right? What can they do?
So you've discovered a lump, or it was discovered on a routine mammogram, and you hear these words nobody wants to hear. Your biopsy came back positive. You've been through a biopsy and it comes back positive. The next thing you know, you're being put through, it's like the cattle with how they're put through those shuttles. I mean, it's not a medical emergency. You don't have to have a positive mammogram and then be scheduled for a biopsy that same day or tomorrow.
Mhm.
It's not in a medical emergency. You don't need to be pushed and rushed. You can say, well, I'm going to have to look into this. I'm going to take my time. You can reach out to an integrative practitioner such as myself and find tools. If you're getting a biopsy, how do you prepare your body?
Mhm.
How do you prepare your mind? What do you want to tell the doctor so that they can take a biopsy with wide margins, or see if they can do a lumpectomy with wide margins so you don't have to then have another surgery?
Mhm.
You can become informed, because unfortunately, when you have a chronic disease such as cancer, there's so many variables involved. And I've seen this, that so many of the centers, depending where you're being treated, aren't up to date with the latest statistics, parameters, offerings, tests. And so you want to make sure that you're with people who really know what they're doing to
Yeah.
the full extent that you can with your insurance coverage.
How do you manage the fear? How do you help people manage the fear? Because you hear that word, and like you said, it's like we're not prepared for it. What happens? Because that fear that's not going to help with your health either. So what do you do?
Well, it's sort of like how you help people with the pain of betrayal. There isn't one thing. And that, a lot of medical oncology is fear driven and fear based.
Mhm.
Um, Cancer is a metabolic disease, and women are not having a horrible end of it so quickly. And I like to compartmentalize. Okay, I was initially diagnosed. All I need to do and think about right now is preparing for my biopsy. And there are certain aspects of breast cancer that you cannot control. For example, once that lump has been discovered, you can't control where it is, what its size was. You cannot control what type of breast cancer shows up on the pathology report or on your oncoscore or mammoprint, but what you can control. And I think this is where reducing the fear and anxiety come in, is you can bring in the best of both worlds, what medical oncology has to offer, and evidence-based integrative strategies to make sure that you're getting the best treatment possible. You're going to stay as healthy and be prepared for when you show up for chemo or radiation or surgery. And then you're going to do everything with targeted supplements, foundational nutrition, mindset, lifestyle, and all of that, stacking slowly and gradually to create new habits to keep yourself as healthy as possible moving forward. And similarly with betrayal,
Mhm.
when your eyes are open to certain things in your life that you weren't paying attention to, and you realize you need to make some radical changes,
Mhm.
it's the same with breast cancer. I think breast cancer is a disease of the feminine,
Mhm.
and it's your body and your mind saying, hi, I've been trying to let you know this and this and this and this really isn't working for you. And you're sort of like swimming upstream. And now it's a time to stop swimming upstream and to turn around and to look at the gestalt of your life and go, I really don't like this person. This person drains me. This person is always asking for my help and never helping me. I have issues with my spouse that I haven't been dealing with. I hate my job. I really don't want to do this anymore. My kids are disrespectful. Make a list
Yeah. Yeah.
and prioritize that list and start looking at it one thing at a time.
You brought up so many things I want to dive into. One is you mentioned that cancer is a fear-based, that the fear-based model. Talk to us about that.
Well, when you if somebody says to you, I think you must have migraine headaches. How does that feel in your body and your mind when somebody says, "Oh, you have migraine headaches," or it sounds like you have irritable bowel syndrome? How does that feel? in your body. But if somebody says, we found a lump and you have cancer,
Mm.
that's a whole different energy.
Yeah.
Just the way they talk to you, their tone of voice, their demeanor. Migraine headaches, irritable bowel syndrome, not a big deal. Cancer? OMG. So it has to do with the energy of the doctor, of the medical oncology people, of the whole system of cancer. And when I teach my programs at the end of each class, I have this slide of the bell curve.
Mm.
Now, for those of you who don't know what the bell curve is, it looks like this. And in
Carol just made an upside down U for those of you
Yes,
listening.
yes, thank you. And inside that upside down U, which is right side up, is every statistic. So when the doctor quotes to you, well, people with this type of cancer have this percent and that percent, and it comes back this many times, that's the bell curve. And all the people in the bell curve, no matter what your disease is, have not changed their mindset,
Mhm.
are doing the deep inner work, like with Dr. Silber, to recover from betrayal, not doing the deep work with me
Mhm.
to realize that the standard American diet is not your friend. It literally quadruples your cancer rate. And the standard American lifestyle is one that contributes to diabetes, Crohn's disease, and cardiovascular disease, as well as cancer. So we have been brainwashed through the American advertising system to, oh, you have a problem, you take a pill.
Right.
When you have a betrayal, when you have cancer or any chronic metabolic disease, even Crohn's or irritable bowel syndrome, it requires more than taking a pill.
Yeah. I'm so glad you brought that up because, there's this, it's like, how do you expect anything different to happen if you're unwilling to do something differently? And I think so many people think, okay, I'll just take a pill. And in the betrayal world, some common responses are, I will just numb, avoid, distract myself from this because it's just too painful to face, or join some lame support group just to
Or
feel
I'm
good, validated, and
oversensitive, I'm making it up. Yeah, that's a
right.
common thing. Oh, it not didn't really happen. He or she didn't really act like that, whatever. Yeah.
Right. And nothing's really changing. And then it's really true. It's not like we have such the most obvious access is to help us heal. It's really to keep us stuck. So then so you see somebody, they've had this diagnosis, they're afraid, they speak with a doctor. Has it changed over the last bunch of years, what the way a doctor speaks to a patient about it, or
I
just
wish I could say that, but I think that medical oncologists do the best they can, and they're all very rushed and they've become immune. But I've had women tell me that their doctors have been, in my worst moment, I would never talk to somebody like that.
really? Yeah, could you imagine?
So I'll give it an example. So a woman's on hormone blocking therapy and it creates osteoporosis. So she says to her doctor, what calcium should I take? And he went, I don't know, go to Walmart.
Wow.
Now, there's so many things wrong with that statement. First of all, this is a serious medical side effect, which is known through research. So if somebody said you have a brain tumor and the doctor said, I don't know, go to Walmart, I mean, it's almost at that level. And I mean, yes, the doctors don't understand that it's not the right form of calcium for a osteoporotic woman as somebody who's in their 20s. So, and this is my area of specialty. So if they don't know, because their specialty is what they do with drugs, the least they could say is, this isn't my specialty. Why don't you look online to some integrative professional and see what they would recommend? Because you need a very specific form of calcium that goes into certain aspects of bone health to
Right.
reduce risk of osteoporosis. It's not just getting an infusion every 6 months.
Right.
So it's taking the best of both worlds,
Yeah.
evidence-based medical oncology and integrative strategies.
Let's talk about some of those integrative strategies because I think, now we're finally getting to a time where we're even more willing to even consider it. And it used to be, and you tell me if this is still the case, it used to be the last stop. It's like, I'll
Right.
try every single other thing. And then when none of that works, then I'll look into those weird, different alternative things. Talk to us about that.
Well, it used to be that. Like when I first started this, I was living in New York and it was in the 70s, and the word detox was not a household word like it is now. Nobody had heard of detox. And that's how I became introduced. I was working with this chiropractor who put people on detoxifying diets using iridology. And when I first started in his office, and his office was in Lido Beach,
Mhm.
out of his home, and this young girl came in with acne, and I thought, why is she here? What's with the diet, with the blended salad? You have bad skin, you go on tetracycline. What's the big deal? That's how naive I was. And one day, going through a pile of papers, I found the catalog to the National College of Naturopathic Medicine. And I thought, oh, maybe I should go here. And that was my destiny. But I got a really wide open education working with him for that half a year, because people came to him who hadn't been helped by the medical profession or who had been harmed. And everybody got well, and well from the inside out. And they were all blending their salads and making juices and eating this delicious food. And so where am I going with this? What was the question? I
No, it was just about why is it that the alternative methodologies are often the last stop?
Oh yeah, because I think a lot of it is uneducation. I mean, medical oncology spends billions of dollars advertising for Zenio and all these other drugs on television. And there are these big teaching hospitals, and integrative practitioners were a little bit smaller. We do a lot with social media and we have our online programs, but we don't have the billion-dollar budget of medical oncology. So, if you're smart, you want to bring in someone like myself from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Because just yesterday, I was working with somebody who had a recurrence. And I said to her, well, has your doctor sent a sample to this one specific lab? And they went, no. And I said, well, this is medically indicated. It's called the Caris Molecular Intelligence Lab. And what it does is it provides DNA evidence of what your cancer cells will respond to for chemotherapy. It matches you with clinical trials, and it gives the genomic mutations that are driving your cancer.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of information. It is covered by insurance if you've had a recurrence. And the doctor hadn't done that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know why. It's a standard test. It's not like touchy-feely. So a lot of there, I think integrative oncology is becoming more mainstream because herbal medicine is all
Mhm.
referenced and researched in PubMed now. For example, Annatto E tocotrienols. The supplement is called Annatto E 300. I mean, Annatto E tocotrienols are known to be the number one antioxidant to reduce oxidative stress, especially for women with breast cancer.
Right.
Having gone through radiation, it's something that I put all women on. So there is more research to support what we knew.
Yeah.
Herbal medicine has been around for thousands of years. Curcumin, turmeric has been around for thousands of years in Indian cooking, and now we know how it impacts the cancer cells. Green tea has the catechin EGCG. It's very antioxidant. It really works to keep cancer cells from going out of bounds and with their cell signaling. So we now have science to use and utilize what we knew, just not historically, but now we have evidence through research, which I think is very empowering for integrative methods.
It's definitely empowering. And what's so sad though is it doesn't have the voice because of the financial backing that all the other stuff has. And I guess that's why it's like people just say, okay, what have I heard of? And what does my insurance support? And let me just go that route.
Right.
And meanwhile, when we're talking about your health, there are other ways to go. Tell us some stories about, cases that you've had where people have come in and they've gotten that diagnosis and they're feeling frustrated and scared and all of this. And what happened?
So the first thing I do if somebody comes in initially, before they start treatment, is to calm the nervous system, to really take a very deep dive into the woman's lifestyle. I mean, if there's children involved that are younger, and women are being diagnosed with breast cancer earlier now, in their mid to late 30s. I had somebody diagnosed at 34. That is a long journey she has. And to the young women out here listening, um, it's because of the xenoestrogens in your body products, in the dryer sheets, in the plug-ins, in the fresheners, and the toxins in the food. And one of the worst things you can do is use these body washes. And now there are these advertisements on television where you're not supposed to even smell, and you're supposed to put this toxic stuff all over your body everywhere. Please do not waste your money, and you're toxing your body out. So divorce yourself from the messaging of how women should eat, look, smell from American advertising. Just go switch it off in your brain. But here is this young woman who was diagnosed. She was 38.
Wow.
So, we took a look at her very complex family history and her stresses and everything that she was using on her body, from the creams to the laundry detergent to the dryer sheets to the plug-ins. She was spraying her sofa with Febreze.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
we had to have her throw out her sofa because Febreze is a very toxic chemical estrogen disruptor, and we couldn't detoxify her sofa. And I worked with her so that her pathology sample was sent to this Caris Molecular Intelligence Lab, even though she didn't have a metastasis. She did have to pay for this out of pocket. The insurance company wouldn't cover it, but it presented us with a lot of information. And from there, I was able to help her target her supplements. And she really began to take on, there is this phrase, anti-cancer lifestyle. I don't think it's anti anything. I think it's pro health.
Right. Okay.
So she really began to say no to the status quo of the standard American lifestyle, the standard American diet. And she went through her medical oncology treatment with me as her guide to how to speak with her oncologist. Is she going to have her ovaries removed, or is she going to be on ovarian suppression? How is she going to manage the aromatase inhibitors and take care of her bones? That is a example of a younger woman, but I have women who are in their late 60s
Yeah.
and mid 50s being diagnosed. And while they don't have to be concerned about that ovarian suppression, they are concerned about should they have a mastectomy or a lumpectomy, and what are the statistics. And I think too often women are having their breast removed unnecessarily.
Mm-hmm.
And that needs to be a decision that's made very thoroughly, looking at the statistics for your body weight. How aggressive was your cancer? What are the statistics of lumpectomy versus mastectomy for your type of cancer? What are you willing and able to do in addition to standard medical oncology? Unfortunately, it is a matter of finances. Can you afford to do mistletoe therapy? Can you afford a certain level of supplements and vegetable juicing every month?
Right.
So all of that needs to be taken into consideration.
There's so much to consider. And you know what's so aggravating is here we see we're bombarded with these messages like, oh, this will clean your house and this is great for your body. And talk about a betrayal like right there. I mean, these products are not good for us at all. I'm already thinking of all the things I'm going to throw out the minute we're done with the
Oh,
recording.
good. Like that Swiffer thing that, they advertise, that's
Yeah.
toxic stuff, ladies.
Wow.
Water is very good.
Yeah. Good to know. All right. Carol, what is it that you want to make sure everyone knows as we start to wrap up?
It's important to bring your emotions into your life and acknowledge the truth of how you feel. That our society doesn't really encourage that in women. When you look at commercials for depression, there was a problem, a pill is taken, and the next thing you know, the woman is cleaning the house or serving a picnic lunch. There's so many messages that are not in alignment in those ads. It's really time to sit with yourself and make a list of, if you're turn the volume down on the warm water syndrome, what in your life doesn't really work for who you want to become? And I don't say this lightly, but a betrayal in a relationship or with a diagnosis of breast cancer, after you've been through that initial shock and trauma, if you take it on, it can really help you get to a very different chapter in your life. And it's my guide through my method and my determination through my program and my concierge care to have that chapter become more reflective of who you are and who you want to become and how you want to feel in your life. And that requires dedication and determination, and you need support. Can't do it by yourself.
We say we have such a similar message for two completely different experiences,
Yeah.
but I can see how unfortunately they're intertwined. And if someone were to get a very scary diagnosis, we would want someone just like you by our side for sure. So, Carol, where do we go to learn more about you, the great work you do?
My website is my name. It's Carol, Carol, and my last name is Lourie.com. There's a contact me section at the top of the page, and I answer every email I get personally, and I often complimentary call with me to see how I might help you.
Yeah. Carol, thank you so much. Everybody who is listening, watching, I have known Carol for years. I respect her tremendously. She's an expert in the field. She's a thought leader and someone you absolutely want to know about if this is something you're going through or someone you love. So, Carol, thank you so much for your wisdom and for your time. I know you shared so much with the people who were lucky enough to hear this today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been wonderful.
That was such a powerful conversation. Stay in touch with Carol by going to carollourie.com, and we'll have all of her information in the show notes at thepbtinstitute.com/podcast. Here's my biggest takeaway. There's an undeniable connection between emotional stress and illness. So in addition to throwing out all of those toxic chemicals, be just as mindful of all of those toxic thoughts. It's time to be empowered and take charge of your health. And Carol gave us lots of ideas on how to do just that. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Thanks for listening. Can't wait to be with you next time, and here's to your breakthrough.